if you're in an organization that's really fostering a community and really trying to build that culture, it's something that you have to work at, but you can't just manufacture out of nothing.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out Be Original with Isley Creative,
where we take a behind-the-scenes look at the world of effective marketing.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Be Original podcast. My name is OJ.
And I'm Christian.
And today we are joined by a very special friend, a new friend, within the last year or so. Her name is Meg Crawford. She's the social media director at Splunk. She's one of the coolest chicks I know. Fun fact, her head was co-inhabited by a live spider, which we'll get more details on shortly. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Meg Crawford. Meg,
hey
how
guys,
are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How are things out there in Kenosha?
Things are great. Meg is joining us from the corporate offices at Splunk in San Francisco, correct? Or am I wrong?
Correct. Yeah, we're out here in the Bay. It's beautiful 72 degrees here today.
Must be nice.
Must be nice.
What is it? It's 28 here right now.
It's 28 degrees.
Very dry and very cold.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
Yeah, exactly, because we feel bad for ourselves. All right, so we have to know. We might as well dig into this first. Your head was co-inhabited by a live spider. What happened?
Indeed. I wish I was making this story up, but it's the thing of nightmares, and it actually happened to me. So to give you full context, this was in college, where a lot of weird stuff happens.
I love it.
But basically, how this went down is I used to stay. So I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I used to stay to run and participate in some soccer camps over the summer. And at the time, being in college, being a poor college student, I would look for the cheapest place, maybe not the nicest, but the cheapest place. So I was actually occupying a fraternity house room at the time for a mere, I think, $80 a month. It was great.
Nice.
It also wasn't the cleanest of locations.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, shockingly enough. When your flip-flops continuously stick to the floor, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So I was watching a movie late one night and kind of sat up and it felt something odd in my right ear.
Sweet Jesus.
Right? And so I can't really describe the feeling. It feels like something's scratching against the side of your brain. And so, of course, I do what any responsible adult does. I know, this is a horrible story. So I immediately run to the bathroom, grab the nearest Q-tip, and just jam that sucker in there. Nothing comes out of my ear. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm just losing my mind. So I go back to watching my movie. Long story short, after a night of no sleep, literally wondering if I was going crazy, I went to student health the next day, first thing, sat there, told the doctor that came in, hey, I think that there's something wrong. I think that there's something in my ear. He looks at me like, okay, you weirdo. Not sure what combination of drugs and alcohol you did last night, but I guarantee you there's nothing in your ear.
Oh my God.
So he's very, very patronizing, and he walks around to my good ear. He says, okay, this one's fine. And then he walks around to the other one, and the room goes silent. He takes a step back, and he comes in front of me and grabs my hands, and he's like, Miss Crawford, I need you to remain calm.
Oh,
and I'm like, well, that just went out the window.
Oh my word.
Yeah. So he proceeds to tell me that there's a live spider in my ear. Probably close to death, but still technically alive. So I try to take his advice, try to remain calm. He then leaves the room and comes back with about 7 or 8 med students because they've never seen anything like this.
This story is amazing.
It gets better. So then they try to extract this poor arachnid from my ear. They've got this like hoop device. They're trying to wrangle it. That's just making it kind of agitated and move around. I start being very uncomfortable with this situation. And then one of the med students finally pops up, and he's like, why don't we just drain it out with a bunch of water? So they get a kind of a squirt gun and drain it out into a cup, and like, sure enough, there's a spider the size of my pinky nail.
Ooh, gosh.
Floating
Meg,
around. Yeah.
That's disturbing, Meg.
It is.
That is scary.
But
So
what I do walk away, though, is that my file at Student Health from then on had Spider Woman written in permanent marker across the front of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's not so
Like,
bad. Spider Woman, that's okay. That's
yeah, I'll take it.
right? OJ loves spiders.
Yeah, I love spiders.
We were in
no, I don't.
Tanzania filming a documentary, and we had his little brother with us.
No, okay.
I don't like where this is going. I don't like
it was awful. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. My brother's supposed to be taking a shower. The shower's running in the room. I come walking in the room like, why is the shower running and why are you not in it? And my brother thought it would be really funny to say, oh, I couldn't get it to shut off. And I'm like, I mean, we're in Tanzania, so we're in the bush. Like, it wouldn't be abnormal for things not to work the way we expect them to work.
You're not at the Four Seasons, yeah.
Exactly. We're not at the Four Seasons. So I'm like, okay, whatever. It worked fine this morning. I walked in the bathroom, and I'm like, I went to the faucet, I turned it off. And I'm like, did you even try to turn it off? And Elliot, my little brother, was like, look up. And I look up. And
he said, don't look
up.
up.
Don't look up. Don't look up. And I looked up, and there was a spider. I mean, the body of the spider was as big as my hand. I mean, it was. It was the most scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. The worst part was we called Washington, who was he was the guy that was maintaining the entire facility. And he comes walking in the room, and he's got some Walmart brand like ant spray, and he's trying to. I'm like, Washington, what are you doing? Next thing I know, he's grabbing a stinking flip flop and trying to throw it at it. I'm like, this cannot be good. I'm like, Washington, is this thing poisonous? He looks at us and he goes, oh yeah, if it bite you, you would die for sure.
Yeah, he starts with spiders are bad.
Spiders are bad.
Spiders are bad.
So from that point on, I vowed to never go back to Africa because that was.
I'm a full proponent of just burning that place to the ground at that point. Like, that is the only way I feel safe.
Yeah, try sleeping in it that same
No,
night.
it was terrifying.
I don't know how you did that.
We started seeing them everywhere after that. It turns out they were huntsman spiders, which are one of the largest spiders in the world. And in Africa, they can span an entire toilet seat. It's like
absolutely not.
Insane. Those are just babies that we saw.
Oh. Yeah. Anyways,
no more spider talk.
More of that later.
Now, like,
this went off in a direction I wasn't expecting.
Exactly.
That's
See,
why
I told you it was going to be laid back.
We love this.
I love
podcast.
it. I love this.
All right. Well, Meg, obviously one of the big reasons we invited you on is full transparency. Meg and Splunk, we've partnered with in the past. We've had the great pleasure of being able to work with. We've done some really fun stuff with them. But obviously one of the biggest reasons we wanted you on the show is we wanted to hear, I think a lot of our audience would love to learn about, or at least from the perspective of a major corporation like Splunk, and some of the marketing things that are going on and what you guys are seeing from, I mean, let's be honest, when you're in a Splunk or any major brand, you see marketing from a different perspective than probably a lot of the people that you're even marketing to, just because you're doing it at such a massive level compared to a lot of other people. So that's a big thing. But I think to start us off, I'd love for you to kind of maybe just go back a little bit and talk about like how you got to where you are today, and maybe introduce yourself a little bit better to the audience on kind of what you're doing and all that good stuff.
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to go down memory lane a bit. So I've been working in more or less digital marketing, social media marketing for over 12 years now. I was lucky enough to kind of come out of college and get into this industry at a time when social media was really, really evolving, and not only businesses but major tech B2B companies were really starting to identify the value of social media. It was no longer just Facebook, where it was 13 universities and you had to be in college and whatever. It was really starting to become ubiquitous. So I got to kind of grow my career in the same pace and at the same time that social media really evolved. So it was massively exciting. I started off my career at a major tech company, SaaS, way back in 2007, 2008. So that's going back a bit. But I've kind of had a journeyman's career. I've been fortunate enough to work for major companies like Splunk, like IBM, all the way to kind of starting my own consultancy and working on the agency side. So I've gotten a kind of all the best of all worlds, and it's been instrumental in being where I am today.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's talk a little bit about Splunk, because I want to make sure that people understand who they are. Mm-hmm. I think just from our experience, obviously we've had a front row seat to some of it, just because we've been able to work with you guys. But for the audience, I want, because Splunk can be a pretty complex thing to understand if you just look at it from like face value. So what is Splunk, and what do they do?
So we are the data to everything platform, and we really focus on the data that our clients are producing, are using, and how they're really bringing that data to kind of every action, decision, question that they're addressing with their business focuses. So, I think the best way to kind of describe that is what we do with our use cases and what we do with our customer stories. If you're not a highly technical person, if you're not a developer, if you're not working within the IT or security space, of course, it can definitely seem like a complex product portfolio. But really, at the end of the day, every business in some way, shape, or form is producing data and is utilizing data. And especially as we move forward and the amount of data within the universe expands exponentially, it no longer becomes a definition of this is just what has happened. We really focus on how you can harness the data that you have and use it to predict decisions in the future and in real time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. I mean, obviously we could apply this to anything, but I think the most fun thing that we could apply it to at this point is marketing. Obviously a big part of a lot of those data points that you're even talking about. I mean, a lot of that is included in the data that you're getting. So from the perspective of a social media director, somebody that deals with social media on a regular basis, what is that data and why is it so valuable for people?
Yeah, so great question. And I think marketing as an organization has always been data focused. From the personas that we're targeting within various campaigns to how we're constructing our content strategy, data feeds into kind of everything we do. But probably a great example of how Splunk is really kind of unique in this situation is the real-time aspect of it. So, for me, working within the social media realm, we run a lot of campaigns, obviously, on the organic side. We run a lot of campaigns on the paid side. And, up till fairly recently, we were only able to businesses were only able to look at historical data and see, okay, well, this is how this campaign performed. These are the 17 reasons that we think why. Well, with Splunk, we can actually look at real-time data and make those determinations and adjustments in real time. So if we have, a social media campaign that isn't performing like we thought it would, we have the ability to kind of go in and look at the data and make those adjustments and really optimize as best we can.
Wow. And obviously you guys are doing that internally. Like that's how you guys market. I mean, that's part of at least how you guys do.
Across marketing, we're definitely, data is a huge value for us. Yeah.
So, okay. I'm trying to figure out a way to ask this. I feel like in the easiest form, we've talked a lot about understanding your audience on this podcast this last, week that we've been recording everything. And, understanding who you're talking to. We've talked to YouTubers, guys that have grown YouTube channels, got people that have grown LinkedIn channels to, the crazy amounts of people following them and talking about how we're niching down and getting into these groups of people that are understanding your message and blah, blah, blah. This is how we build all of these things. What types of data points should we be looking at when we're building those kinds of audiences? Is that something that we can... Like, if anybody was watching this video right now, if you're a marketer and you're looking at, let's say you're looking at the back end of Facebook and you're trying to figure out, like, how do I figure out who I'm talking to better? Like, are those the types of things that you can figure out from that?
Yeah, I think marketing, social media marketing in general, and this isn't just unique to Splunk. I think the direction that we're going with data is just leading more towards personalization, right? Channels have expanded. The amount of people using channels have expanded, but therefore the amount of data that's available has also expanded. So what are we looking at that really can allow us to have those personalized interactions? Because that's what people are expecting at this point. You can no longer just kind of mass message to audiences and expect a return on that. It has to be really catered to individualistic audience needs, the type of content they want to see, the type of media they want to interact with. So, that's the road that I think is the Shangri-La that everybody's kind of shooting for.
That's good.
That's got to be tough, too, as a tech company like Splunk with so many applications. Your demographics are enormous. The tech world is huge.
I would agree with that. The tech world is huge, but we, if you look at our social media channels and if you look at a lot of our marketing efforts, I feel like they really speak more so to, we get into the tech a bit, but we have a really unique brand tone and voice, and I think we try to convey that information and those messages in a way that everyone would understand. So for us, it's not only talking to that tech crowd, for sure, we want to resonate with them. But it's also getting our brand in front of individuals that might not be as tech savvy so that they can still understand the value behind what we have, what we do.
Well, that was one of the biggest things I was going to say too. Like, it's refreshing to see, a brand like Splunk and, from a bit like a small business perspective, like Splunk is like pretty crazy big. Like, it's enormous, right? So, and when it's refreshing to look at a brand like that and see how you guys have managed to really just, the awesome part of what you guys are doing is that I get excited about watching a Splunk commercial on LinkedIn because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's the tone, like what you were talking about. Like, it's so interesting to me that even huge brands have to. They have to think about it. It's not just about the product anymore. It's about how you're presenting it to your audience, and it has to be done in a way that is going to build trust. But at the same time, you're actually building a community around that tone too. Yeah. Because even when we were at SplunkConf 19, like, the tone lived through everything that you guys did. Yeah. It was through your parties. It was through your keynote stuff, like all of that. It was just fun. Like, I remember we walked into Robert Herjavec was doing a keynote thing, and one of his things, like, that guy, like, Shark Tank, like, he's huge. But you walk into his room and it's just like, it was like a breath of fresh air because it was just so light, and everything about it was like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're changing the world. Like, all of these things, it made it feel really cool to be a part of. So,
absolutely. And I think that really harkens back to a couple of different things. One, we have, and we're lucky enough to have a really, really dedicated user community that really supports us across the board. And we try and foster that as much as humanly possible, because those really become, kind of our evangelists on the ground. And it's just such an awesome community to be able to tap into. And two, I think what's great about Splunk, and I think you see this at a couple of different organizations, within tech, is that we're highly dedicated to our culture, and everybody buys into that. So, we really focus on, and I think that this is reflected in not only, what we do at our events, and what we do, across our social media channels, but we really try and reflect those like key pillar values. We want to be fun, we want to be innovative, we want to be disruptive and open. And so, when I was going through the process of investigating Splunk, and Splunk was going through the process of investigating me, I think that they really look for that level of cultural fit, because it is reflected so ubiquitously across everything we do. And so if you follow our social media channels, we have a great social media director who I work in conjunction with, Lauren Sandelin. She's got an amazing tone, and it's a personalized tone, and it's it represents the brand, but it doesn't feel like you're speaking to the brand. And so we try to insert, being funny. We try it to talk to you like you're a person, and I think that's what really resonates with our crowd.
Yeah, it was really cool too, because like OJ was talking about, for us, it's not just to Splunk potential clients. It's not just to people that are bringing Splunk value, but it's a cultural thing. Like it just exudes from everybody in the organization. And so as a vendor coming in and doing something with you guys, we felt like, like we were a very small part of everything that you guys were putting on, and we felt immensely respected and like welcomed in and part of the family. And I think that's huge. It's huge in everything because it's authentic. So when there are sales efforts that come out of that, or social media efforts that apply to, gaining traction or gaining clients, it just comes out of it authentically and naturally. And that is huge for what you guys are doing.
For sure. And I think, again, that's not only what resonates with our audience, but it also what is kind of differentiates us, not only from competitors, but just kind of across the board in tech. I think if you look at some of the bigger companies out there, if you blindly looked at their content, you couldn't necessarily differentiate across the board, where we tried to, again, insert our values into everything. And that's what, you saw at Conf as well. It's a little different. We had a full RV set up in our demo room with the big data beard guys. It's not something you see every day. We had Ed Veal, riding 24 hours on the bike, analyzing that data. So I think we take a little bit of a different spin. I mean, even if you look at our logo and colors, the pink and orange is very different from the blue that you typically see across the board. So we definitely are trying to differentiate ourselves, but we're doing so very purposefully. It's because it's what represents the people that work here, and it represents the people that we work with. And we definitely want to have that authenticity.
I think when you get to a point of a Splunk where you've built this audience, and it's almost, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's almost cultish. Like your following is like I mean, it's funny because like even the group that's not even what's the name of that? We interviewed the people with the hats. What were those guys called?
Hats?
Oh, the Splunk Trust.
Yeah. Splunk Trust is a perfect example. Splunk Trust, they're not employed by Splunk. It's a community of people that have built a community inside of a community to help other people get excited. And like that's only in marketing, in the world of marketing, that's the kind of stuff people pray to have for their organization. It's like, we want these groups of people to be so excited about our stuff. It makes it so much easier when new products come out, new dashboards come out. You no longer have to depend on necessarily the marketing strategy of it. You have a giant cult following of people that are excited and enthusiastic, just like you guys are.
Yeah, no, and what I would say, for anyone, that's trying to build that level of community or starting out, like we didn't, it didn't start out that way. It grew organically. And you really, if you're in an organization that's really fostering a community and really trying to build that culture, it's something that you have to work at, but you can't just manufacture out of nothing.
I like that. Wait, stop. Sorry. You can't say that again. You can't manufacture it. What? Out of nothing?
You can't manufacture it. Shockingly enough, you can't manufacture it out of nothing. So, I think that it has to start with a really, obviously it has to start with a really solid product base. Your product has to be useful to that audience, and I think that there has to be a differentiator about it. So, we're lucky enough to be in an organization that has that unique combination to start out with, and then when you layer on, not only the culture on top of it, but really listening to that audience and taking your user audience seriously into your product development, into your marketing strategy. That's how you really build a solid community of brand advocates moving forward. You got to facilitate them as much as they facilitate you. It has to be a two-way conversation. And having been at multiple organizations within the tech space, I think Splunk does that better than I've kind of ever seen before. And I think that's really reflected in our output. You might not know what Splunk does, but you could come across a Splunk Trust member and they're gonna be one of our most enthusiastic advocates, and we're not paying them. We definitely try to facilitate them with the kind of content they need, with any kind of support. But this is organic, and that's why it's authentic. And I think that that's, again, something that you can't just manufacture, and it's something that you certainly can't pay for. Neither one of those roads work.
How important, and we've talked about this too, like a bunch, is these pods, these small groups of people that are brand enthusiasts. Like from a big brand like Splunk, how important are those Splunk Trust people to really the marketing efforts of Splunk?
Yeah, I mean, huge. And I would say two things on this. One, our community of Splunk Trust and our community of Splunk users are instrumental. Not, from a marketing capacity for sure. They definitely help with brand advocacy. It's wonderful to have it be an authentic message coming from them. And they definitely go to inform, our product roadmap and what functionality that focuses on. But again, I think it's also tapping into our customer base, and this kind of harkens back to a question that you asked earlier. Is if you're not on the technical side, a data portfolio can be a little complex, and so how do we make that message resonate with audiences that aren't necessarily technical audiences but need to see the business value in what we do? So I think something that we do well, and something that we're continuing to kind of iterate on moving forward is how do we highlight our customers, and how do we tell their stories? Because people, I think audiences want to hear not just use cases, but unique stories, and how are we helping businesses achieve their goals? How do we make them the star? And that's something that I think we've done well, and we continue to move on with in the future. Recently we did a really great story with Domino's around Super Bowl. And that's a story that I can tell my mom, and she's maybe the least technical person on the planet. And then she finally understands, oh, this is what Splunk does. And so those are the moments. Yeah, those are the moments that we want to shoot for, and we can convey the business value with.
Yeah, I think Splunk does a very good job at recognizing that the landscape is changing, and and it's not pigeonholed in tech per se, but it is related to tech, and that industry has changed a ton. And you think about the people that are in that world now are gamers, and they're they span a lot of different personality types, and it's not like it used to be. It's not the nerdy guy with the button-up shirt and like just clacking away on a keyboard. It's people that are influencers. It's people that are doing all sorts of things that help drive culture, right? Like it changes. They change our culture when you have things like Twitch and all these other streaming sites and things like that. Like that is all data driven. And Splunk has touch points in every one of those, and I think that's a huge differentiator between Splunk and a lot of other Silicon Valley area companies that are like you said, it's the blue and the gray and the black branding that very like, this is what it is, this is what we do, and it's been like this for 20 years. And even though technology has evolved, we haven't necessarily in culture, but Splunk has. And I think that's what's so attractive to it, especially for us, because we're kind of, in the mindset of disruption and recognizing what's happening. And I mean, even with our podcast, we try to keep it as laid back and not stuffy and make it understandable because the things that we do can seem really elusive to people. And I feel like we have similar problems on a different plane where sometimes people are like, well, what do you do? And we're like, well, we're content creators. Oh, well, what's that? Yeah. Well, that's what everybody's doing now. That's what you do when you pick up a phone, and that's what you do. You know what I mean? It's finding that differentiation, and I mean, we have almost the same pink in our brand colors too. So I think that's partly why we like you guys. But
it's a great color.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head a bit now in that, especially within digital marketing, social, et cetera, there are so many platforms now and everyone is a content creator and there's just, terabytes and terabytes of content out there. So how do you weed through and really resonate? And I think that's something that you have to kind of appreciate when you're putting a strategy together is it's no longer about, well, this is, these are the key takeaway messages that we want to focus on. It has to be a larger conversation than that. It has to be, what does our audience really need to hear? And how do we tell that in a unique way that A, they're going to see it, and B, they're going to pay attention to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been doing a songwriting course with my wife. We play music and we like to write songs and we're trying to get better at it. So I've been watching this course, and one of the things the guy said in this class that we watched yesterday was, imagine what would happen if you stopped thinking about what you need and started thinking about what they need. And that's so true. I think a lot of times our strategies and our tactics come in a way that is, well, what are we trying to achieve at this point? And I think that just happens when you start to give people what they need. And again, coming back to the podcast, like our goal is, yes, we want to learn, and that's part of the reason why we started doing this podcast. But the goal is to just give anybody that needs what we're learning, here, this is what we're giving you, right? This is the potential. Marketing is not that hard. The hardest part about marketing is the psychology of it, is understanding how people think, how they feel, how they react with things, right? But the reality is you're just communicating with people. And if you get on their level and understand the pain points that they have and the things that they go through in their life, that's where you strike a chord and you start to resonate with people, right?
Right, absolutely. And it always makes me laugh a little bit because I've been in marketing for a long time, but at the same time, like you, I'm just a human, and I have those moments where I'm trying to learn something and I'm like, why will this brand not just give me what I need to know?
Yeah, that's so true.
And at the same time, I'm a marketer and I have to stop myself from being like, okay, these are the only things I want to say because I want to say them. Mm-hmm. It has to be from the outside in. And it's just funny to me how that's kind of lost sometimes in the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny because I saw a meme yesterday that was, I don't need an inspirational quote. I just need coffee. And it's so true because you've built your content plan, and every Monday you're sharing an inspirational quote. Maybe send somebody coffee. Right. There's a human element to it that we're missing a lot of the time. Right.
Well, and I think that there's a massive amount of pressure. You always, given the environment we have today, it's a massive amount of pressure because you always have to feel like you have to be on, right? Like if you're not saying something, then we're losing ground, and that's not necessarily the case. I think that's why we end up with a lot of content that just doesn't go anywhere, doesn't resonate with anyone, is because it's created just for the sake of being created. Yeah. And I think, from a strategy standpoint, you really have to get away from that because it's not benefiting you. It's not benefiting your audience. It's not benefiting the prospects that you're trying to reach. And you just wind up with a lot of stuff that doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, you said something earlier that, I think we all have come back to it a few times without saying it, but being true to yourself, being true to who your brand is. We talked about that with the YouTube guy that was here, Dan. It's just about getting out there and putting yourself out there because there are going to be people that are going to relate to what it is that you're doing. Like there are plenty of other people that we're all humans. We deal with a lot of the same issues in today's society.
Absolutely.
So why not just continue to be true to that and just really, because ultimately the goal is to get to a Splunk status where we've got pods of people that are similar to us, that are excited about the same thing, that are going out there and being our ambassadors. But we can only accomplish that by continuing to be true to ourselves, not putting out content because it just has to get put out. Like, it's not just a checkbox anymore. It's about doing it with a purpose, because you are who you are.
Yep.
And put it out there.
Yep. Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think everybody's pie in the sky ideal is to your point, to have really, really dedicated audiences that not only are there to kind of listen and absorb and share, but also like actively participate. And that's what I kind of really love most about Splunk, is that there's so much active participation on both sides of the coin. That it really creates this mutually beneficial relationship. And that's, I think, the main goal, is we always want to focus on that mutually beneficial relationship, and make sure, again, that our audience feels supported, that we're not kind of going astray just for the sake of saying things that we want to say. We're really paying attention to what they need to hear, what they want to hear. And I think it's that, again, that two-way relationship that is really paramount.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's, I mean, obviously Splunk's probably beyond this point at this point, but do you think that asking your audience to be involved, like, is that a tactic? Like, how do you, I guess I don't know, I feel like from a smaller brand's perspective, like, how do we get that interaction happening with with our potential clients or our potential audience? Like, do we come out and ask for that, or is it something that naturally happens over time?
Yeah, great question. I think for sure, having active engagement, whether that's across social or within your community group, is definitely a tactic that not only benefits you, but benefits them as well. They feel like, it's just like any two-way conversation with somebody, where you're participating and asking questions. It's genuine in that I want to know what you think. If you just provide a form out there for people to go and submit on their own, that's not really actively engaging. So across social, within our community groups, we definitely tap our audience for not only feedback, but just active participation within that conversation. And then, two, it's providing them ways to communicate with us across multiple channels. So it's not just social, it's our community group, it's our customer interactions with our customer support team. It's multifaceted, so they really know that we're here for them, just as much as they equally support us on the other side.
That's good. Is your CEO the guy that started the company? He's still involved?
Doug Merritt. Doug Merritt was not one of the founders. Okay. No.
So, just out of curiosity, we're talking a lot about being true to yourself. Is this the personality all the way through, like all the way up to the top? Are we seeing the same type of fun, understanding, like, yeah. Is that the same person all the way up to the top, from the top to the bottom, or?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, in my time here at Splunk, I've been here a little over a year and a half now. I absolutely see it reflected across not only our employee base, but into our C-suite, and Doug as well. If you've ever seen Doug on stage, which I know you did at Conf, he reflects those values of fun and transparency and openness and disruptive. And he's a guy that, I have the benefit of working for, that is genuinely not only enthusiastic about the direction that the company is going, but how to best support our employee base and our customer base. There's a genuineness there that I haven't often seen before. But yeah, this is, Splunk. I'm gonna promo Splunk a bit for a second, but it's been an absolutely amazing experience in that they take those values and they support you across the board with them. So we have employee advocacy groups that, if you're into any particular thing, they want to support you in that. If you are into a certain charity, they're definitely going to support you in that. And actually, a great example I have is recently I participated with another employee in the Cycle for Survival event here in San Francisco, where you get on a bike for a couple of hours, and the money goes to research and support of rare cancers. And my CMO, Carrie Palin, who has been on the job for a few months now, found out randomly that I was doing this and submitted a huge amount towards that charity in my name. And you don't see that every place. And it just harkens back to Splunk really, really backing up what our values are.
That's awesome.
And like I said, I'm sure there are other large organizations like Splunk that operate and do a lot of the similar things. But it's been really exciting for us specifically because we don't get the front seat to a lot of those other companies, but we've gotten to sit front seat for a little bit of it, and it's refreshing to see that there is still big brands out there that care about their people. They care about their audience. Mm-hmm. They're investing in their audience. They're investing in their people because it does. Ultimately, we talk about this all the time, and we've talked about it this week. Like, this all filters down. Like, when we can, as a brand, when you can excite the people that your audience or even the people that you work with, the brand ambassadors, that's. In a sense, it's free advertising. Like, they're gonna go out there and they're gonna be your team, your street team. That's gonna be, and that's super valuable. And for the companies out there that watch this that aren't necessarily at the level of Splunk, those are the types of relationships, the true, authentic position that you're standing on, and giving that to your audience is one of the most powerful parts of marketing today. And we see that more and more.
Over my years here at Splunk, what's been truly remarkable is that they have really remained attached to those core values, even though we've grown exponentially over the last few years. And I think that that's a huge challenge for a lot of organizations. In that, as you get bigger, as you take on more people, as you expand, you tend to maybe lose a little bit of that flavor that made you unique. And Splunk has managed to maintain that, and I think that that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, Meg, to wrap things up here, I'm going to put you on the spot because we like to do this thing at the end. We like to give our listeners as much tangible things to take away from this conversation as possible. So 1 to 2 things maybe people can apply to their own brand, to their own, marketing efforts. 1 or 2 things to take away from this conversation.
Yeah, I would say a couple things. One is, and we touched on this with, community building, is really, really not only listen to your audience and your customer base, but facilitate them as best as you possibly can. And that, again, isn't just a feedback form on a website somewhere. You really have to be actively participating in that conversation. You have to actively be taking away, listening key points from that audience. And it has to be something that you continuously do. It's not a one and done. So if you're building a community, you are part of that community. You have to be active within it. And I think that you have to take the things that you glean from that customer base, from that community, and really infiltrate it across your marketing strategy. Because A, those are the people that are going to be your best brand advocates moving forward. And B, they speak the language of the potential customers that you're going after in the future. So paying attention to them and really taking those key takeaways and inserting them not only into marketing, but kind of how you go forward with product, how you go forward with business strategy, I think is a huge thing.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's real
so good.
Well, Meg, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. We know how busy you are.
I had a great time, guys. This has been fun.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Be Original Podcast. Be sure to like, comment, share, ring that bell on all of the platforms, including audio. We appreciate and love you so much for spending the time with us. See you next time. Peace. Thanks again for checking out Be Original with Isley Creative.
We hope that this helps you put a little more you in your marketing.
Catch a new episode every week right here on the Be Original podcast.